Hello. Hey, I'd like to give a little Rails tour of where things are in a Rails app. And one way to learn and do that is using scaffolding. Now, I wouldn't recommend this for creating your own app from scratch, but I think I'm going to use this as an example that we can refer to. And then I would recommend yourself to also have a scaffolded app on the side, and you can actually refer to it for syntax examples. So it's a great learning tool to get started. So I thought I would give that tour using scaffolding, and I'll paste these notes into in onto a place that can be viewed by all. But we're going to get to this command in a minute, so hold tight on that. But I did want to talk about what a resource is, and you'll hear that in documentation when dealing with Rails data. And so I just wanted to identify, it's an entity. So you identify an idea, example, student, customer, cars, just something that represents data within like your database, for example. And then also it's supporting files, so migration, route, models, controllers, views, JavaScript, and CSS. And so what we're going to be doing today is Rails provides a scaffolding command to generate a resource. And so we're going to briefly and look at in detail in the future, near future, but today briefly look at what a migration is. We've already looked briefly before at routes, models, controllers, views. We're going to also take a peek at JavaScript and CSS. So let's go ahead and do this. We can start taking a tour. So we copy that and find a directory that works, makes sense, wherever you have your example apps. Make this bigger. And so let's dissect this command before we run it. So Rails is always the command we use to generate, and we've done this before. We've generated a controller with some views, but this time, so you'll see Rails generate. So we've done a controller, now we're doing a scaffold, and that's exactly how that is there, and that's going to create a resource. And then device is the entity. So that could be anything. I mean, it could be a student or widget, or it's whatever it is that you want to create an app around. And then I have company, which is going to be a field on device of type string, and it's going to, in name, is going to be a field on device, and that's also a string. So you'll see where that relates to in a second after I run this. Oh, of course. Of course, I need to run the new command first. This needs to be within an existing app. So I'll call this devices app or something. Okay, great. Now that I have the app, you can see I have devices app here. I'm going to navigate into that directory, and then now I can run that command. So I'm still waking up. So, all right, so I can't run this command until I have an app. So got to generate the new app first. Now I'm in the app. Let me clear my screen first. Now that I have an app, I can run this command. Cool. So if we take a quick tour of what was generated, notice we have a migration. We'll take a look at that. We have a model called device. We have some tests, which we're not going to look at right now. We have some routes, some resourceful routes. right here. Take a look at that. We have our controller that was generated, and then our files, and check these out. We have index, so any index files are used to show a listing of items, edit, show, new, and then a shared, what's called a partial. And I'll talk about those in the near future as well. We'll skip down here to assets, and there's JavaScripts and style sheets. So we'll take a look at those too. Cool. So I'm going to go open up my editor. Take a look here. So the migrations are found under the DB directory. I'm going to open that. And notice the nice Ruby syntax for generating a table. So you can do this all in SQL. Basically, this is just a wrapper or a nice shortcut into it generates the SQL and runs the commands for you. So the only thing this does is it creates a table. Okay, and so creates a table, and there's those fields that we added: company and name of type string, and then it's going to add some timestamps like created at, updated at, and those are just defaults. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So let's stick with migrations for a bit, because I'm going to go back here to run. I actually need to execute this command. So back in my notes here, Rails DB migrate. Okay, this will run the code in the migration files. Okay, so I need to create that table, right? So in order to create, let's see, this one, I need to execute this command. So the way you do that in Rails is you go here and you do a Rails db::migrate. Okay, that's a command that Rails provides to run those migration files. So when I run this, you'll see migrating, created devices, migrated. So it actually executed and created a table for you in your SQLite database. So again, this will run that migration on your setup database, which by default is SQLite, but could be MySQL or PostgreSQL, etc. So you could set up another device, or database, but SQLite set up by default. So cool. They actually created a SQLite database here, and yeah, we probably don't want to open that here. That's for binary purposes. They actually a database file. We don't want to open that right now. So we'll come back to database stuff in more detail. Like I said, in the future, this is just a tour. So we will come back and talk a lot more in depth about migrations. Next, I wanted to look at the route, which we've done a little bit of this already as well, but it's in config and then routes. And notice it says resources and devices. Whereas before, I don't know if you remember, we did like a get cars or city data or something. We did something like that, which allowed us to access, a city controller, etc. Resources is resource route actually sets up a lot of commands for you: get, post, put, delete, any CRUD actions on a device. Okay. So a quick way to get a handle on what's going on with routes, like what gets generated, is let me take you back to another command, and I'm glad I have these notes here. Is Rails routes. You'll want to do this a lot as you're working through resources. And so I'm going to go back to here and do a Rails routes. And I might not want this here actually. Okay, good. I think that other one was messing me up. Okay, so what this generates is, let's see if I can get it all to show on one screen. Cool. So what this generates are a bunch of routes for you. And notice that there's devices, a get on devices, a post on devices, a get devices new, get devices edit. So it sets up a bunch of predefined routes for you. And this will come in very handy when we start writing forms that submit and links between pages. We'll use these built-in routes to navigate around the application. So again, this is just a quick high-level view. We'll come back to routes a lot. Okay, cool. Let's get back to the app and go back to here. We'll go to app and go to our model. And notice we have a device model. Super empty right now because we inherit a bunch of functionality from application record. Now application record is built into Rails and it gives you a bunch of functionality to interact with your database. So we're going to be really thankful for that. And so we'll come back to application record and how to use it with our models at some other point. But again, the quick, I try to teach these commands as we go. But Rails console is your quick access to using Rails to interact with your database. Cool. So we'll come back to that too and go in much, much more detail. So next, I'm not going to spend too much time on controllers, but notice this generated code for index, and it even gives you the example routes right in here. That's actually really nice. Show, new, edit, create, and notice how they line up with these RESTful methods, verbs, post, for example, update, patch input, delete, etc. And we'll go over these in detail at a later point, but just want to let you know where things are. And then there's the views, and this is the part where you'll see all these views and embedded ERB to how to display information, links on how to link to information, like a new, which actually references a form. So the form is right here. How do we set up forms? Yeah, I'm excited to go over this in detail at a later point, but just want to show you where things are. And then finally, we have assets, where our JavaScript is. And we have devices.coffee. Rails uses CoffeeScript, so you'll want to check that out, coffeescript.org, to add some basic JavaScript and interactivity to your site. So you'll want to do a quick read up on that. But again, I'll give you what you need to know for now as well. And then also style sheets. And so in here, device.scss, this is where Rails puts your style sheets, and it's using SCSS. So you can go to sasslang.com and check that out. But it's kind of a CSS on steroids. So it's really cool to work with, really powerful, and I think you're going to like it a lot. All right, awesome. Well, that's a quick tour of a Rails app, and we're going to be interacting with all those pieces a lot for the rest of the quarter. I just wanted to give you a quick overview and also make sure it's really clear. We're going to go into each of these items in detail. So that's coming up. I just wanted to give you a heads up. This isn't just, we're not covering this now and not again. We will definitely be going into each of these items in more detail. Okay, talk to you next time.